Hello, fourth graders and even all the viewers who may watch it over the YouTube. Welcome at another online lesson for my history classes at the secondary grammar school, Gymnázium Andreja Kmeťa in Banskej Štiavnici, Slovakia. This video is another part of the 19th century topic, which is a big topic. Called the long 19th century. Just very quickly, I'm going through the previous classes, through the previous lessons that either they are or not over the YouTube, but we have already passed with my students the characteristics of the long 19th century, British Empire, and from France. For today's lesson, it should be revision of France together with unification of Italy, Risorgimento, and also Germany. Later on, Russia and the Balkans are already uploaded over the YouTube, so you may watch it. So very briefly, just through the contents, we went through the characteristics with including a couple of interesting phenomena there, and of course with the terms that you need to know, including liberalism, then with nationalism, with some interesting questions to ask. And of course my students, they do know that apart from the test, they will need to write down a couple of or respond questions I give them further on. So other things like emancipation, social rights, the education around in here, also with a couple of information about the tabloids and the broadsheets, about the healthcare that was very important in the past few years, several years, including COVID epidemic. So that was the other part. The things that you cannot see behind my picture are another things, but because I didn't have time to adjust the presentation, you cannot see that. So if there is something interesting, I will just open it and describe it. Industrial Revolution will be important thing for both three countries I'm going to mention, and also imperialism and colonialism, which used to be generally like the topic that is sometimes taught for a few weeks and months at many schools, for which we are going to revise this school year. And for the graduates, you're going to revise actually what are the remains of the colonial empire since the 15th century, as you can see, as they were growing. And for us, we'll have, which is important, the clash for the colonies in this 19th century and before the war, before the World War I. So let's move on. We do imperialism and also to United Kingdom. Also kind of a mind map that may kind of explain any of the things in here. So about the United Kingdom, we have already had a lesson in here, so I'm just going fast through that, including some of the things that I haven't mentioned maybe before. But of course, if you are more interested also in kind of like more cartoons to compare, that's come to our school and join the classes. If not, I don't know. Okay, for the France in the 19th century, just like fast revision, because the previous video came to 1830. So the point of the France in the 19th century is what Clemens Metternich called and Paris as a called all Europe sneezes. The point is that despite the Bourbon Restoration brought this King Louis XVIII to the throne, which his family, you know, he was descendant of Louis XVI. You know, you may try things that are old-fashioned, ancien régime, and they may work, but they did not. So he was sure that despite the suffrage, like a general voting law may be limited, but most of the administrative reforms remained in practice, which made people like pretty okay, or maybe not so discontent with it for few or several years. France was also internationally the member of the Holy Alliance that tried to oppress the interventions in many countries. The French themselves, they intervened in Spain and Greece, and also War of Independence of Greece against the Ottoman Empire didn't have much support apart from Britain and Italy, also from France until 1830, when the revolution changes everything. His son, Charles X, who looks more like the king of the 19th century, not like this previous one from like wearing a wig, for example, still, which is very old-fashioned. It's like trying to introduce like limits or limitation of abortions, or maybe same-sex couples not having at least registered partnership, which is still like common, like current topic in Slovakia, and not very successful, which makes our country really conservative and old-fashioned in this way. Nevertheless, the aim of Charles the X de Bourbon, he tried to restore the absolutistic monarchy. It's not a big surprise, because Clemens Metternich, himself chancellor from the Empire of Austria, sorry, our country, he himself tried to like give like something that was in here in Austria. So like very strong police regime, watching those who are against the monarchy, would like to pull it down. From their point of view, just like in Russia of the 19th century, even in here, or in Prussia and later Germany, there will be very strict censorship, and of course any attempts for like republicanism, Bonapartism, enlightened reforms, maybe kind of emancipation, liberal reforms, were concerned to be like setting new world order, pulling down the bad regime again. Yeah, it may sound for many conspiracies and hoaxes like nothing new, but at that time, this is 19th century speech, this is still in here. For the French, it was, for example, the freedom of speech and liberty of the press were restricted, and even the act of sacrilege in churches was punished by the death. So if you came to church and did something that Pussy Riot in Russia some years ago, that you would be executed. You cannot see the picture of the Battle of this bridge. From this romantic painting, you'll see many of them. And this so-called July Revolution of 1830 broke up against the king. And let me cite it. I'm not sure what is the source for this. I can't remember. I have to search for that, and I will add it in the commentaries below in the YouTube video. So some of the historians claim this part. Despite the return of the House of the Bourbon to power, France was much changed from the era of Ancien Régime. The egalitarianism and liberalism of the revolutionaries remained an important force, and the autocracy and hierarchy of the earlier era could not be fully restored. The economic changes, which had been underway long before the revolution, had been further enhanced during the years of turmoil and firmly entrenched by 1815. These changes had seen power shift from the noble landowners to the urban merchants. I did ask my students, and if my students are watching this, revising for the lesson, be sure, what does it mean? Egalitarianism, égalité, fraternité, equality, liberalism, of course, but even autocracy, so self-rule, and hierarchy. So you are not equal to the others, and there is some kind of system in which you're not equal to the others. You may have been lucky for being born in a rich family, landowner's family, factory owner family, or maybe not just a proper race, the color of your skin, or being just a woman. So in this way, there was very much of discontent, which causes this revolution in Paris in 1830. Charles X was forced to flee, and new King Louis Philippe seized the throne, who was offered the same thing as William III of Orange in England of the late 17th century. He was offered the throne in order to accept the constitutional monarchy. It means the monarchy with the limited power of the king, where still the parliament, in this case National Assembly, will have some powers. This so-called July Revolution thus is bringing July monarchy that will last until this Spring of Nations years, 1848. As I said, constitutional monarchy was established, and even he himself, he declared to be the king of France, not the king of the French, as he wanted to show off that his right to rule came from the people who came to the barricades and waving the three-colored flag that was actually banned, not used by this time, was introduced again. Another thing was that It was period of colonialism, nationalism. So despite having also positive things from our point of view, this current point of view, some things were positive. On the other hand, they also wanted to perform that they are very strong country that is going to claim maybe their rightful, or from their point of view, the lands that may be different. And that was the cult of Napoleon Bonaparte. On the other hand, still France didn't feel very much like restoring the power, I mean this aggressive imperialistic policy immediately. So they started with very pacifist foreign policy, and for example they refused to intervene in Belgium and in Brussels in a big insurrection, and also they started to support the Greek War of Independence, and also especially giving them independence. The symbol of this revolution, apart from many others, was this painting by Eugène Delacroix, himself painted here like just following liberté, personification of liberty with waving French flag. What I point at this painting for my students was that a lot of people who were dead in here, a lot very naturalistic, like a terrible dramatic scene full of romanticism, crowds of people, but followed also by a kid, by a boy with 2 pistols. In my opinion, half-naked woman in a kind of like ancient Roman style dress, a boy there, and people who are like empowered. It's kind of a symbol of emancipation of those being oppressed. Of course, women and children will have to wait for many years until in many like of so-called developed countries will have these rights. Anyway, they didn't. So this was kind of a big manifest for them. Influence of this 1830 revolution was that this spirit started to spread all around Europe. Behind me there is a map of the 19th century between like the Congress of Vienna 1831 and 1870-71, and you can see, actually you cannot, but we can see, in my students they can see the flags or the stars, the sparkles of various places. I picked up from several the bird of Belgium. At the lesson it took me a lot of time to speak about the country. We have already talked at the period of Reformation that this was actually the southern part of the former Netherlands that we called Nizozemsko, and this was part of so-called the Union of Arras after this War of Independence, or 80 Years War, where the Dutch seized independence of their provinces and their own self-proclamation of the religion, which they confessed was, of course, Protestantism or Calvinism. Here in the southern parts, it was more complicated, because these parts of Union of Arras were parts of France. Approximately, I can show it my head, is approximately in here, yeah, like this one. So they, for many years, they were parts of France. Anyway, after the Congress of Vienna, it became part of the Netherlands, and this is what it started to be the problem, because the Dutch and who were Protestants were not getting very well on with this Catholic population of the southern provinces, despite, for example, sharing the same language, the Dutch, with the Flemish population of the Flanders. Not the flat Flanders, of course, and in the southern provinces, French-speaking Wallonians. Again, you cannot see the picture. Maybe I should have moved these pictures, and which I do very soon. So I interrupt my projection. I believe it will work in a minute. So I'm back at my stream, so I believe everything's will be working fine. So I just moved some pictures. So this is where I finished with how Belgium looks today, but even in the 1830, when this revolution came in France, and subsequently there were many. The actual rebellion, insurrection started in Brussels. That was bilingual, but mostly Roman Catholic. But as a result of the French Revolution, the Brussels people started to claim independence for this region that was a bit like different from the northern Netherlands. Louis Philippe refused to intervene and help the Dutch in case to attempt to keep this country together. So in 1830, Belgium really proclaimed independence in 1830. As the country looks today, it's bilingual, of course, with the Dutch and the French Wallonian. Dutch Flanders and Wallonia in the south. What is interesting, maybe the flag that consists of two flag of Flanders, that is yellow with the black lion, if I'm not confused, if I can remember, and the yellow, the golden flag with the red rooster, cock. So combination of these colors, and of course in the shape of the French flag, which also symbolized kind of revolution in here. Small country, smaller than Slovakia, doubled population than Slovakia. Anyway, very important. In both world wars, it will be invaded by Germany, and it will be held. They will be held, given help from United Kingdom. Also, they managed to seize the colony of Congo, in which the French supported in their claim of this land. Anyway, these guys, like Belgium, became infamous of what happened in here. Anyway, I'll come back to this, but what also the flag, the origin, what is the etymology of the name Belgium? The name itself came from the Celtic tribe of Belgs, who were Gauls in the northern Gallia in the 1st century BC, and Gaius Julius Caesar mentioned them that they were great shipbuilders, and they were given help also from their cousins from the north, from island Britannia. So that's why he need to invade it. Romans invaded it. So when these Flemish and Wallons were looking for the name, they found it like 2,000 years ago. Also, the controversies of the next king, second king of Belgium, Leopold II. The first one was from Saxe-Gotha-Coburg. For Slovak watchers and my students, nearby out of my window, you can see the village where he was born. And just like many other rulers of Emperor of Mexico, of Brazil, the king of Greece, Tsar of Bulgarian Tsardom in the First World War, all of them were native from this Saxe-Coburg mansion that is next to Banskej Štiavnica. Anyway, Leopold II was king of Belgium, during which they exploited Congo, and probably not even British or French behaved so badly against the Congolese people, and it became one of the most infamous genocides. So while claiming the timber from the woods of Congo, they killed many people. So when several years ago that started the Black Lives Matter movement in USA, you know that it started because of the statues in like the pretense was that apart from the murders by police, it also came with a kind of like falling down the statues, and it happened also in France and in Belgium. So don't be surprised that people were pulling down the statues, because King Leopold is a symbol of almost genocidal regime of Belgium. Anyway, the country today is a symbol of European unification, so you need to do some more of the progress. Just like also with Poland, that at that time was not independent. It was occupied by Austria, Prussia as since 1770s, and after and also by Russian Empire. For a while, this Warsaw Archduchy, it became independent under the influence of Napoleon Bonaparte, so kind of the satellite states, and logically it became part of the Russian Empire after the Congress of Poland. That's why in Polish, in Russian, Ukrainian, also in our Slovak language, we call these territories Kongresovka. An uprising that started thanks to the Paris July Revolution, so many Poles got the weapons, and of course they started to fight. Despite it didn't stand much chance against Russian Empire, so many of the actually all the leaders were executed, even those who were their wives got on the horses and led the soldiers who didn't have any many shooting weapons. So those who didn't have, they took at least like the sides, like on the similar to Slovaks in cholera uprising soon after, and also the previous year, like in middle times, they were Czechoslovakians. So this Congress uprising was oppressed. For us, for Slovaks, it was important because Samo Chalupka was participating in here. He had very bad scarf. That's why scar from Russian Cossack saber, and that's why he was wearing a scarf around his neck. And when he came back, he persuaded Ludovic Stur and his movement that Pan-Slavism is actually not a good way how to deal with the tragedy of Slavic nations in the Austrian Empire, and maybe it's a good thing to cooperate among themselves and to rely on Russians who like pretending like while they're liberating other countries, Slavic countries, they had no problem to Russify them. And this was the thing: Russification of Poles, of Russians, of Belarusians, of Ukrainians, causes many atrocities later on, and of course 20th and 21st century, that is right now. As I said, that also part of this revolutionary of 1830 was this cholera uprising in Slovakia. Cholera, or Russian fever, as many people called it, was kind of like pandemics of those times. Here in Slovakia, people also like not very sure what was happening, didn't trust the authorities, and during the crisis, people got into the hoaxes. And the hoax appeared in eastern Slovakia, around Košice, Michalovce, Humene, Sabinov, that officers, administrators, usually gendarmerie, physicians from the cities, came to their villages and in attempt to disinfect the wells. They were pouring lime into the wells. And people, not knowing what are they doing, many of them were like Hungarians or Austrians, or just didn't explain that to them. So hoax appeared and turned people into anger against officials, that they want to poison them, which didn't make much logic, but that was kind of also emancipation to get rid of the rule from those who were privileged. And of course, the rebellion, the uprising was drawn in the blood. The military had to come and of course, how hundreds of mansions and noble households were being burned down. Many people were lynched, and many thousands and hundreds were killed afterwards. So this is kind of like interesting stuff, how like one revolution in Paris may have effect. Another revolution is this 1848, and the effect was dramatic. Of course, these are the reasons what was happening in France. Of course, despite constitutional monarchy was kind of a progress, but not enough. The French had been already kind of infected by these revolutionary ideas of equality, of enlightenment, of Bonapartism and republicanism. So of course there is still discontent with constitutional monarchy, and they start to call for the universal suffrage for males, so it means for men. The other thing that was lasted for many years, bad harvest, bad weather in 1846, 47 and 40 caused starvation and many rebellions, radicalization of people. This is a very important message and experience, lesson from history. They need to learn that how climate or agriculture and social securities or insecurities may cause kind of irrational thinking, or maybe rational thinking calling for something else, and making people willing to change it and to make stuff. They were criticizing the king at so-called banquet campaigns, where people could criticize the regime, but as you can see, not only for banquets with the food, but people started building barricades, maybe robbing, already using the red flag of Karl Marx, which I have mentioned before. And this will be actually the first year when these attempts will come to, not to practice, but they will be mentioned in here. So of course, these banquet campaigns were being banned, and between February and March, you cannot see it behind me, in 1848, this Paris rebellion turned into French Revolution, during which Second Republic was proclaimed. Of course, Louis Philippe went to exile, and the new National Assembly passed this male universal suffrage. That brought elections, new MPs in the Assembly, but also the new head of the state. And of course, now France had already kind of working example that was functioning, that was working, and that was USA. In the United States, the head of the state, who not only possessed kind of like representative but even like executive power, was the president. So they decided to have election of the president, and usually this kind of like elections, many democracies are not very, how to say, major. So it's pretty enough you have a good name, or you're like a very like exotic or interesting personality. In this case, nephew of Napoleon Bonaparte had excellent name, so people decided to vote for him. Constitution was accepted, in which there was like republic proclaimed. So when we compare it, we have another French republic in here. The effect of this 1848 revolution was a huge wave of revolutions all around Europe. So let's start from the West, the Irish protesting against, like, for the independence. From Great Britain also, with terrible potato famine results in here. In United Kingdom, in London, people of the Chartist movement were protesting for also giving more people, more male population, their voting right. Also in London, Karl Marx lived in exile with Friedrich Engels, who had already written large part of, maybe all, I don't know, book of Das or Der, I'm not sure, Capital. So they excerpted a short, brief summary in which, in the poster, in the form of a leaflet, they start to spread it out and call for the bigger revolution than only nationalism and liberalism. They called for socialism and communism, and that's why it was called the Manifesto of Communist Party. This is just the beginning of the socialist communist movement, their attempts. We'll come to them later on. Let's move on. France proclaiming republic. Of course, Spain, Portugal experienced it too. Denmark too. Italy and Germany, they tried to call for the unification of both of the countries. But in Prussia, in German lands, that was in kind of democratic way of this republic. Kind of like just like in France, the same in Italy. Both of them were oppressed, were not successful. So they needed to find another way how to find the way, and that was more radical, more conservative, more militaristic, and not very positive for the upcoming breakout of the First World War. So if I had to mention some of the reasons of the breakout of the First World War, that would be 1848. Failed democratic, liberal revolutions in both of the countries. In Austria, that is our case, Austrian Empire, in Vienna, people rebelled against Ferdinand V, who was, and of course Clemens Metternich, who were replaced by, by Franz Joseph I, who still as very young, 18 years old, conservative monarch. He promised some like advantages for the people, maybe more seats for more people in the Reichstag in Vienna, but also abolishment of serfdom in Hungary, for example. It was still not pretty enough. Later on, Hungarians or Magyar-speaking Hungarians proclaimed independence from Austria, started to fight. Later on, in Croatians started to fight against Hungarians, calling for more independence from Hungarians. Slovaks, the same in April and May 1848, for which, of course, they were being persecuted. Many of them escaped to Prague. And here in June 1848, the big rebellion, uprising of Czechs, also against the Austrian monarchy, was oppressed by Italian troops, mostly of them. The same Romanians were calling for the independence of Wallachia, Moldova from the Ottoman Empire, and unification with Transylvania, that was mostly predominantly Romanian speaking, despite of big minorities of Germans especially, and also Magyars. So I mentioned this with Magyars to make it different from Hungarians, at the time where could be any of the ethnic groups living in the Kingdom of Hungary. For that reason, we talk about so-called the Spring of Nations, the Narodov. Here in France, that is our case, the effect didn't last for long, because Napoleon III Bonaparte, he realized that his name is really cool, and people not only miss the old times of Napoleon, but also they didn't mind the empire. For them, it was kind of a good regime that provided them with the security, with kind of fame, why not? So that's why in 1851, and when he realized that his power is like kind of stable, so he proclaimed himself the emperor. Mostly in history books, this French Empire is called the second. I prefer to call it the third French Empire, since we had the first empire was of Napoleon the First Bonaparte until the Battle of Leipzig. Then he was imprisoned in the island of Elba. We had a very short period of the monarchy, of the kingdom, and then again, when he came back, when he managed to escape from Elba, and he restored the empire. This is the second one. So this one, since like 1851 till 1870, this is the third French Empire in this logical chronological counting. Napoleon had all power in the state, but some decisions were approved by referendum. So he actually kept the suffrage in practice, which made these people, the French male population, happy about and fulfilling their ambitions concerning political rights. On the other hand, he led also very successful economic policy that was kind of result of, again, kind of mercantilism still there, industrial revolution that France also started to exploit coal, especially around Rhine and Lahn region, also in Alsace-Lorraine, and they built their armies, they built a huge colonial empire. Anyway, they lost a fatal war against Prussia in 1870. So this is another of the maps, mostly from Wikipedia, that what they lost already in the 18th century was kind of American territories that they actually sold to the USA, and also lands in India that they lost at the wars against Britain. Britain supported like Maharajas in India. Also from Indochina, what they lost was to the kingdom of Thailand, to Siam, and in the north either to the British or Dutch troops also in Burma and in China. What my students need to know for the test is for each of the countries that we will have today. I picked up some major colonies. For example, I picked up Syria as a part they held for a long time, Indochina, that today are 3 countries of Vietnam, Laos and Cambodia, or Cambodia in Slovak. Madagascar was kind of a jewel in this part of the world, but also all Northwest Africa, that from many of them, Algeria, definitely Morocco, and many other countries all around. The only that you miss, maybe West Sahara belong to Spain, maybe Ghana, for example, and Togo to Germany later on after this war, before that to France, Nigeria to United Kingdom. But as you see, there are still many territories in the Caribbean or in Asian lands. Of course, thus it makes French kind of like important colonial together with Britain, and of course Germany made them like very jealous about the French. Second Empire fell during this war against Prussians. We are going to talk about them soon. Who provoked the conflict against France with like fake telegram being sent and misinterpreting the words in there. Only in 2 battles after Germans invaded these lands, you will see more of the maps in there, at the Battle of Sedan and Battle of Verdun, which almost in every major war French army is fighting near Verdun, this fortress from the 30 Years' War. For a short time, Prussians, now Germans, occupied Paris, but they moved further on to Versailles, near Paris, in which in the mirror hall they proclaimed German Empire. Of course, this was terrible humiliation for the French, who needed like kind of feeling for revenge. Now the French new government, because as you see, Napoleon III Bonaparte fell to captivity, now in a dialogue with Otto von Bismarck, the Chancellor of Germany, of German Empire right now. So the Third Republic was proclaimed, that lasted until the First World War, the Fourth Republic until Charles de Gaulle, and then the Fifth Republic. Anyway, in Paris, while having no army to rule, many of the locals started up a big socialist insurrection in Paris that is called the Commune of Paris. Po slovensky Parížská komuna. The word commune is actually a word by Karl Marx that I have mentioned, because this manifesto, was like maybe ignored or criticized by many of the people, by Ludovic Sturm, for example, for us. But for many people, they were positive about this. So here, when there was kind of like anarchist or maybe vacuum in the power, these people go to power and proclaim this commune, which should have been kind of a community, providing everything free for everybody and having common products and means of production. In this way, they would just share the results and having this as the thing. The truth is that in few weeks, not only they were besieged by by Prussians, later by French army, but they ran out of all their resources and they were eating even animals from the zoo in Tulier. So that was kind of a practical experience for the communists, what they missed, what they didn't do, and also for one guy, the leader of Russian communists, the radical socialists, who was watching that. It was Vladimir Ulyanov, later called Lenin, and he realized one thing: when the Paris Commune was destroyed, so all of the organizers and participants were being executed immediately. So it was not nothing like we are going to discuss about the revolution step by step, but if you want to survive as a communist, you need to do in a violent way. And that's why Lenin added his ideas to Marxism, creating Marxism-Leninism. That step by step he explained how he thinks that the revolution should be planned, with creating the councils called Soviets, who are going to overtake every single institution within the state, from schools to factories to the government, and each of these, everything, all the enemies needed to be oppressed before the enemies will execute you, like the communards in Paris were being done. So this was kind of big thing for them. Anyway, for the French, generally the loss of Alsace-Lorraine that became part of German Empire was, and also humiliation by Germans and loss of the colonies, many colonies caused desire for the vengeance, for revenge. That's why revanche from French means revanchism. That was one of the causes of the First World War. So if you travel back to the 19th century, maybe this interfering of Germany into this war may be different, or maybe willingness of the French to start the war was the other thing. However, the Third Republic was also like this, with Gustav Eiffel building the Eiffel Tower for the World Exhibition, with many other buildings. Most of them were later deconstructed, just like in London, the Crystal Palace, for example. Anyway, Gustav Eiffel's tower was kind of like symbol of excellent engineering that people managed to do, and also for them that was something crazy, something incredible and big and great. He also built part by part Statue of Liberty in 1876. They sent it as a gift of the Republic of France to the Republic of USA as a gift for their 100th anniversary, and real original photos of how Gustav Eiffel is building the Statue of Liberty in his workshops atelier in Paris in Svätý Anton in mansion bought by Ferdinand Kobur. The Republic was also like this. This weekend we are having communal and district elections in Slovakia. Many people refuse to go. I'm happy that now students are willing to go. Despite they don't have a lot of information, they need to send it to you. But compare nowadays on the list of the candidates to the French promo poster of the elections, in which the form of the comic book they explain how it is important to go to election, how every single class of society may influence and may affect the future with going to the elections. So this is something that we miss even today, and it was a big progress. On the other hand, the French colonial armies were conquering the world, especially Africa. So this is only the comparison that how it changed only within 30 years. How many countries belong to the British from the Cape Colony only to large parts of these African lands, from Algeria and Congo only few countries, Cote d'Ivoire maybe, no, Senegal, to French became all territories in here. So also French behaved very badly, especially Algeria, which caused also other conflicts in the 20th century. But also this is another part. Jules Verne became another symbol of great not only the fantasies, but what especially science offers to us, going around the world in 80 days only because of the new means of transportation. Various almost sci-fi about from the earth to the moon, that they already knew the moon is as a planet. And today you have flat earther believers. He knew that there are already first attempts to build submarine, and since times of American Civil War, and he believed that in the future it will be super great and able to travel like to the depths of the earth. So not only the fantasies, but many of his ideas about airplanes, airships, and submarines actually came true. So this is interesting about literature and culture. Also, that France, thanks to this open-minded and very liberal attitude, became a mecca for all the artists from all Europe, and not only American artists, Pablo Picasso, but even Vincent van Gogh, who found either inspiration or shelter or just audience, people who were willing to buy impressionist, cubistic, abstract paintings of all these guys until the 20th century. Let's move to the third country in here, and that's Italy in the 19th century. Again, let's have a look what Clemens Metternich said. Claimed, so he quoted once, "The word Italy is only a geographical expression." Something similar was said by Vladimir Putin. In February, when he tried to explain invasion to Ukraine, in which way Ukraine does not have right to exist, just like Slovaks, the same by many people, and we can continue with Basque, with Kurds, and many other countries. It's only a coincidence that Italy didn't exist at the time. Of course, the Apennine Peninsula consisted of many states. It was not only geographical expression, because there were many that they shared. Firstly, they shared common Italian language that was, of course, derived from Latin and was commonly widely used since times of medieval ages. Another thing was the Roman heritage concerning law, for example, in city-states of Florence, Venice, Genoa, also a lot of the things from theater, culture, architecture. The other thing, very important, very often forgotten, is Roman Catholic religion. Italy and like the center of the Rome and papal state, they didn't have any problems with Calvinism or Protestantism, and it was country that remained Roman Catholic. Of course, in this case, even very conservative, even today. The other thing that experienced was kind of a Renaissance period. On one hand, people were very religious, very how to family-like, conservative. On the other hand, very progressive, and that will be also the land when not only a lot of socialist but even fascist ideas came. This is even the part of progressivism in case if you believe that it doesn't have to be given to everybody and you pick up only those you think. So main parts of Italy, just like in medieval times in 1494, will be almost the same in this period. Again, my head in Italy of the 19th century in the map. In the north, there will be the city-states and duchies with very highly developed industry, just like, for example, the Duchy of Milan, the Duchy of Savoy with Torino, for example, Republic of Genoa, Republic of Venice, at this time overruled by Austrian Empire. We'll see another map soon. The Turin, that was actually like the capital of a very small state called Piedmont, later being unified with Savoy, with Milan and Genoa, and creating a kingdom that we will call Piedmont Sardinia, including this island. They became kind of a leaders state. If you compare actually the unification of Italy and Germany in one chart, you will have very much of the similar things, the means and ways what they did it. Also, one leading state with very skilled politicians having this. In this case, it was Piedmont. Central Italy, of course, was the papal state since times of Napoleon conquest of Rome and the papal concordat of 1801. Rome and papal state was under influence of France. You see, they were very much powerful. South was the kingdom of Naples, of kingdom of Two Sicilies, not anymore in the hands of the Spaniards, but still with influence in there, and this kingdom of Two Sicilies was still there. They missed coal and enlightenment. Maybe enlightenment was there, but they missed all the things you need for the industrial revolution. Thus, this country was underdeveloped compared to the south, and still there are big differences between Italy in the south and in the north. You can see results in policy even these days. That's why it was more conservative, also with rule of mafia. We'll come to that soon. So at the beginning of the 19th century, Italy was ruled by Spaniards, by the French who occupy all these lands, and of course by Austrians. After the Congress of Vienna, as this map is depicting, is Kingdom of Naples or Kingdom of two Sicilies, Papal State Toscany, Modena, Piedmont Kingdom, Parma. But look at this, all Lombardy, so Southern Tyrolia and Venice and Trentino became actually occupied and became part of the Austrian Empire. Don't be surprised when Sissi, Elizabeth of Bavaria, with Franz Joseph the First, when they came to Venice, they were being mocked and booed because they hated them. You know, the Austrian movie depicts very different picture that is not true. Italians hated them. They were the representatives of this occupation, and that's why movement for Italian unification called Risorgimento started. The main resistance movement appeared gradually. The first one were called Carbonari because since 1820s as legal organization when local Italian governments were persecuting them, of course under the influence of the conservative Holy Alliance regime. So they were hiding in subterranean parts of the houses when they had these illegal meetings, and usually in the subterranean parts you got stalls, and next to the stalls you got wood, some wood like timber logs, and you got also coal, and that's why they call carbonari, not according to spaghetti, but according to the coal supplies in the subterranean parts of the houses. So this is actually, how to say, a real symbolical picture how the police of perhaps maybe Austria is leading these Italian guys of Carbonari from house already and shackles. One of the founder of nationalistic movement for this of the Risorgimento was this Giuseppe Mazzini. He established organization called Young Italy that became kind of model organization for many similar all around the Europe of those times, and some of them survived under the First World War, and one of these young Bosna will be kind of like organizations where the assassin of Franz Ferdinand d'Este will be the member. So this is one of the things. Giuseppe Mazzini, despite having maybe compared to our times very conservative ideas, still he was the one that was kind of one of the founders of this Unione, Forza e Libertà, union, power, force and liberty. So you see that Italians realize that maybe it will not be so easy as in France, that one revolution of barricades, you just scare the king, he runs away and proclaim republic. Not like this. For example, none of the movements appeared in this southern Sicilian kingdom or kingdom of Naples, in which they started a movement called Mafia. Mafia was kind of a brigand movement against the French in the Sicily. So it started with the occupation of these lands, and when there was like the French present, they started to fight them. Generally, there are a couple of explanations. What does this abbreviation, the acronym Mafia, what does it stand for? And among the things that are here around is that Mafia may stand for the acronym Morta alla Franca or Franchia, Italia Avanti or Italia Ale. So like that to France and Italia forward. Which probably seems not to be true, and it may the origin may be very old from Sicily in the times of Arabic movements. Anyway, this is very big difference, because now people relied on the power of the weapons. They got also illegal in kind of a brotherhood and very strong family partnerships, because who can betray you? Your partner that you elect democratically, politician? Yes, they may, but not the family, because you know where they live, you know who they are. So this kind of family relation, but also a lot of corruption. And later on, even with crime being transferred to the USA, to other Europe, is giving this name of Mafia. Since 1830s, they started this insurrection in the south, not by mafia leaders, but by another great military leader called Giuseppe Garibaldi. So probably the most famous Italian 19th century character who started to organize voluntary troops willing to fight not only against the king and against the Spaniards and French to liberate the Sicilian and Naples kingdom, but also against Austrians in the north. They start to wear red shirts so people can't see them bleeding, and so these red shirts. Another thing was in the north there was this Piedmont Sardinia kingdom, which was becoming more and more important thanks to great industry in Torino, Fiat Italian Automobile Torino. I don't know when it was founded, maybe at the end of the 19th century. So again, I will add the commentary. You can write it down before me if you watch it. They have the king, their own king, Vittorio Emanuele, but also the prime minister, Camillo Cavour, who decided to use diplomacy of kind of realistic, pragmatic policy, just like Otto von Bismarck. The kingdom itself was represented by Vittorio Emanuele II. This is an important thing to know. And another of the personalities, Giuseppe Verdi, who persuaded many Italians all around the country with his opera Aida to inspire them to revolt for the unification, that Italy is one big nation. Now I have a task for my students. You can guess too. Right now, guess the personalities. So who looks like a bandit, like a brigand from the south, like Giuseppe Garibaldi? Who looked like a composer? That was Verdi. And who looks like a king? So you got a few names. So you got a couple of, okay, and last one. Okay, so when you look at these guys, obviously, I think you can guess that who looks like a composer in opera with cylinder hat, Giuseppe Verdi. The king, obviously, with the military uniform, is Vittorio Emanuele II, and who likes to bring in a folklore costume of southern Italy is Giuseppe Garibaldi, and the only one who's dressed up like politician of the 19th century with glasses on his hands and reminding me my good friend Patrick Lambert, so always looking like this, is Camillo Cavour, an excellent politician in here. Now all these branches of Risorgimento had to go unite, and gradually they managed to defeat their enemies and seize new territories. Of course, they need to gain support of the major countries that could stand against, let's say, France. United Kingdom, which happened. France, yes, went at the regime of Louis Philippe ended up. And also when in 1853, Piedmont Sardinia joined both these countries in their intervention against Russia in so-called the Crimean War. 1853, 1856, we'll learn about them in the part, you may watch it in the part about the Balkans, where Russia also, this war really shattered the bases. So maybe this is the time that I may give a hypothesis what may follow if Russians are going to lose Ukrainian war. Of course, not their territories, just like in Crimea. They didn't lose anything, only they didn't manage to conquer large parts of Bulgaria and maybe change Istanbul to Constantinople, but it shattered really the basis of the country that started to do reforms, which were not actually effective. Anyway, when the Garibaldi's army in the so-called famous the March of the 1000 overruled the kingdom of the Sicilies, in which in this picture they defeated the local troops of Italians, conservative, many of them were joining them. So he decided to meet with the leaders of Piedmont, and he agreed upon the unification of Italy. So famous meeting, center of Italy, Garibaldi with Vittorio Emanuele II. So now this time, Piedmont Sardinia had also to fight a battle, a war against Austria in the Battle of Solferino. That was a big battle in which also many Slovaks fell in the street, fell in laying in the battlefield. Some days afterwards, Henri Dunant was walking across the battlefield, and still there were people dying, and many of them could have been saved because of first aid, but nobody gave them the first aid. So that's why they decided to establish the Red Cross organization. Now, when Piedmont Sardinia defeated Austria, and they persuaded them that now, okay, you Austrians had to give up some of the territories, and you have to allow us to unify with the Sicilian kingdom, which eventually our monarch did. Also, there were big reforms in our state, in our country, bringing, for example, more freedoms to Slovaks with Matica Slovenska, the establishing first of gymnázia, grammar schools in our country. That period actually lasted only for a few years. I will come to that. Anyway, Kingdom of Italy was proclaimed on the 17th March 1861 in Torino, in Turin. So that was the first time when Italy is being unified. Of course, the name Italia comes from Roman province of Italia. That was the basic founding of Italians, of the language. Then they waited for another war, and that was war that Prussians provoked against Austrians again. In 1866, only 5 years later, Italy used the situation and they invaded these Austrian territories of Italy, and actually they annexed Venice. Of course, from the point of view of the Venetians, when you look at how they were happy when Vittorio Emanuele came to Venice on gondola, it's like floating, so everybody was cheering them, not like when Franz Josef came to Venice. That was nothing. So actually not annexation of Venice, but maybe the liberation of Venice. It always depends whether people actually celebrate the arrival or not. In this case, there were not many Germans living in here, so in this case we can speak about like kind of positive nationalism among the people. Anyway, there was another war of Germany and Prussians we are soon going to, and that is a Franco-Prussian war, in which this northern German confederation invaded France. They defeated them, as I mentioned, in 1870-71, in which Italian troops again used the weakening of France, which still ruled like above and protected the papal state. Now Italian troops just entered the Rome. They just see the Pope and told him, sorry dude, we are leaving you only one square, and of course your gardens, palace and cathedral of St. Peter and St. Paul, but we are taking over the Rome, which must be the capital of Italia, because no other city, the only eternal city, can be this one. So eventually the unification of Italy is ended up with the sieging, with the seizing of the capital of Rome, and as I said, the Holy See was given only one square, which is called even today Vatican. So as Italy before 1914, how they experienced, so they managed to conquer new colonies in Africa. For them, that was Libya, one of the richest countries thanks to oil in Africa, but also Somalia. Just like Germans, they won't be very satisfied with this, so they later joined Germany and Austro-Hungarian Empire in the First World War. Later, which will all be very successful for them, despite later joining again like the Entente powers. So in 1930s, Mussolini and his fascist armies will invade Ethiopia. Okay, still in Italy was kind of industrialized only in the north and south and the poor, so very bad conditions for agriculture caused that, especially from southern Italy, almost 1/6 of population emigrated to USA. If there are the videos, if not, well, someday I may upload them. You will see the comparison in the chart, how many Italians from the north and from the south. It was like maybe 3 times more from the south emigrating to USA, which is coming like Malone Breeders, New York circa 1900. So you see, this is another thing. This is Chicago, Little Italy in Chicago. So it's not a thing, that's a coincidence. Not only spaghetti, pizza, but also mafia came to USA and became like important. We are covering this monument of Vittorio Emanuele II, one of the major squares in Rome, a very popular spot for demonstration, rallies and riots. Not only good ones, but even Italian fascists ended up their march to Rome in 1922. So this is one thing. Okay, I got this link for the Wikipedia Italian unification, which is GIF, and you will see a couple of pictures. So I'm not using it very often, so I believe my internet connection is still here. Look, we got 1 hour. I believe that Germany will be pretty fast. So when we click at this picture of Wikipedia, I believe I can use it. Come on, this original file. Okay, so is it working? Yes. So 1829, we, as you see, revision of this Italian. We got this northern with being okay Austrian, but as you see, Lombardy and France taking some lands. It's 1859, taking all these lands. Look at this, it will be very soon. Now taking part of the Sardinia, and now Soon, 1860, we'll have this unification. Sicilian kingdom being taken over. Okay, that's a short time. Apulia. So Kingdom of Sardinia with Italy. And now with the help of Garibaldi. Okay, the GIF now is like slow down. 60 September, one by one. And still papal state in here. And now we'll have this unification of Pontecorvo. And this is the moment, 1860-61, only small papal state and Venice. But soon Venice will be lost again. Now Florence for a short time is becoming, and now 1866 they are taking over the Republic of Venice from Austrians, and annexation of the papal state and Rome becoming the capital. Okay, thanks for the side. Let's go back to the presentation. There are a couple of maps for the students, especially for the test. So it may happen that you may have to guess the time. They may be approximate the time periods, timelines, and you have to set this timeline of Italy one by one. I could not move this last part when Italy is eventually unified, so this is similar. Okay, so let's go to eventually the last country from today, and as you see, it was pretty similar. What was happening in France, Italians could use for their unification, and the same thing was happening with Germany. Germany never existed until this period, 1871. It existed as Holy Roman Empire. So let's have a look what Clemens Metternich said and analyze what are the pictures around. Clemens for Metternich: I have never feared that the revolution would be endangered or gendered by the university, so supported. But at them, a whole generation of revolutionaries must be formed, unless the evil is restrained. Seems to me certain. The greatest and consequently most urgent evil now is the press. All journals, pamphlets, etc. in Germany must be under censorship. He didn't hesitate that universities and kind of like educational message of Holy Roman Empire, of universities in Germany, of the Reformation, of the city-states or independent cities and free cities and Hanseatic League can bring like people of German lands and German language to kind of nationalistic revelation and kind of unification. On the other hand, at that time, he said that for them only like the press, the media can be dangerous because they can be the motivators, kind of generator, of these processes. So as in these pictures, you will see that Germany is standing here, maybe Weimar Republic or maybe mid-19th century personification of Deutschland as a country of three colors of the Rhine Confederation, also can be kind of like similar to maybe French, liberté, maybe to some other personification of freedom. That's why also Bundestag and Reichstag at the same time Berlin will be something that will be the place of rule, but of Prussian kingdom of the 19th century. Very different from these democratic and liberal processes, especially in politics, not so much in economy. That was very, very much like, despite conservative in politics, very liberal in economy. Still, there kind of a message from the older times unifying them, where the Grimm brothers, for example, the language that they share, despite of course north and south of Germany, can be pretty different, can be pretty various, but German language is shared not only in this land of the Holy Roman Empire. Since medieval times and the lands of East Francia, it kept them together, but also many other languages, like Slavic languages in eastern provinces, Romanesque languages in Switzerland or in these Italian territories, or Francophonic regions of Holy Roman Empire in Belgium and Alsace-Lorraine. Many Germans living also in Slovakia, in Hungary, in Romania, so there was kind of big diaspora of that. But what happened was the Habsburgs were of the official rulers of Holy Roman Empire until the Battle of Austerlitz in 1805. The Napoleon defeated Austrian armies also with their Russian allies, and he forced our emperor to accept the dissolution of Holy Roman Empire, which means that France was taking over kind of like protection, but at the same time the influence upon these territories. Of course, the Austrians reacted very quickly, because now the emperor asked the Pope that if he may proclaim Austrian lands, Austrian empire, Austrian Archduchy and Czech Kingdom, Bohemian Kingdom, Moravian Markgrave, the Kingdom of Hungary as Austrian Empire, which they did until 1867. We'll come to that point soon when it ended up, because we'll move it also to our history in Slovak language then, for our Slovak history. Nevertheless, this Obrázky z české historie is a funny cartoon from the series over the Facebook from this TV show, so I'm grateful to the authors of it. It's very funny, a bit like not correct language, but this is not only the grammar, it should be regularly fun. So the thing is, the point is that now Napoleon tried to create kind of united German state that would be kind of satellite state. He could not do it with all Germany. They would be more powerful than French. So his so-called the Confederation of Rhine, you will see it in the map, was their satellite state. And the uniforms, the colors of the uniforms they used were also these black, red and yellow, and it became symbolic for Germans that this is a symbol in which the times, yes, were occupied by the French, but on the other hand, people were actually free. There was not any conservative monarchy, people had voting right for the suffrage, of course, kind of like legislation, lawful process, jurisdiction. It was pretty like okay for them and fair. The Congress of Vienna actually kept Germany just like Italy divided. So again, influence of Austria and France was dominant. For example, when we have the revolution of 1848 in Frankfurt, where there were big like rebellions for the unification of Germany on liberal base. So do you know who oppressed these lands? It was Prussian army that was motivated by Austria to go there and actually defeated it. So this was actually these liberal, more democratic attempts to unify Germany failed. So as I said, not only in Frankfurt, but this March Revolution had effect also in Berlin. But you can see the new German flag inspired by this Confederation of Rhine, Rhinish Confederation, was preserved for the first time. It was forgotten for many years, and it was restored by Weimar Republic in 1918-1919. That's why for Adolf Hitler, this flag symbolized democratic, liberal, leftist Germany that he hated. So if you see this uniform somewhere, even for Germans today, it should be the flag of kind of like very open-minded, very liberal country that is in here. So it is strictly interesting in my opinion. The strongest state that I have already mentioned was Prussia. Prussia actually was the former state of so-called Teutonic Order or Teutonic Knights Order. This was Crusaders monastic order that was established after the First Crusade, but they moved back to their homeland because there were many pagan hidden regions on their borders, and they started big crusades along the Baltic coast against pagan Slavic peoples of Poland, of Kashubs and Odobrids and many other northern Slavic peoples. They don't exist anymore. Of course, Poland was moved to the south. Here they clashed and annihilated the Baltic speaking nation of Prussians, and they took their name. Of course, they conquered large parts of Lithuania, later Latvia and Estonia, and established a state that survived for many centuries, but moved mostly to these parts, only like these parts of like Eastern Germany nowadays. Of course, Latvia, Estonia, were conquered by by Sweden, then later by Russians. So like dramatic history of them. Anyway, when you see this cross of Prussian knights, so they were taken over by its land. So you see how they moved from these territories of Königsberg, which is nowadays Kaliningrad, or how Czechs mock Russian annexation of Crimea, Královec, Český Královec, which had some connection with Přemysl Otakar II, but not very much like. As you see, most of these lands were later also the Polish territories that Prussians took over together with Austrians and with Russians. That were these three partitions of Poland. But also they later claimed more lands of Brandenburg territories with Berlin, but also Pomerania, which they seized also the very rich coast of these lands. Why was Prussia stronger than the others? Connected with this guy, Frederick the Great. Friedrich II of Prussia started up and lighted reforms in economy and military, just like our Queen and Empress Maria Theresa, but also King of Portugal. Actually, this was very effective because they built up compulsory schools and also manufacturers that raised armies and country that was able to feed them, and armies, soldiers that were very well equipped, very well trained and disciplined. So combination of all these with modern guns, strict discipline made excellent, very powerful army that will be still among the ones undefeatable in the 19th century. Not by Napoleon Bonaparte, of course, for a while, but we are coming to the 19th century where Prussia will be among the countries restoring these conservative monarchies. In the 19th century, they became stronger because they used their strong economic industrial liberalism together with powerful landlords and tycoons or magnates who are called Junkers. The Junkers were actually very powerful landowners who invested their income from those lands into factories and building up very powerful industry. Of course, everything was based upon agriculture, not only by German peasants, but also by Polish or Lithuanian peasants too. So collecting like taxes was not very like a nice moment of their lives, and even the people who were living in Prussia not very happy at all, especially peasants. On the other hand, Prussia tried to unify all German states in this violent or military way that made them very powerful. So they start with so-called unification with iron and blood. This was called and also so-called Realpolitik, that was kind of pragmatic foreign policy of changing their allies and enemies according to the current needs, was invented by Chancellor of Prussia, Otto von Bismarck. Just like many monarchies of the 19th century, they were not absolutistic. There was a king, but he elected very powerful and influential guy, a chancellor who had a lot of impact upon the policy. So we need to know this guy, especially Otto von Bismarck, also called the Iron Chancellor for his very strict policy, but also the other guy, and that would be the founder of this German Empire, Wilhelm I, who was the king and later the emperor of German lands. What does it mean, this Realpolitik? It means that when Prussia looked around, they realized that these parts, like western parts, were under influence of France, southern parts of Bavaria, again France, but for example, these middle parts of Saxony and maybe these Rhinish Confederate or lands up to Hamburg were under influence of Austria. Actually, the number 14 is Schleswig and Holstein territories were originally the territories of mostly Danish population, but parts of the Holy Roman Empire. But after the Congress of Vienna, these territories were given to Denmark. Denmark didn't have any problems with these territories. Germans were pretty okay, but Prussians decided to start up the unification of Germany with iron and blood on this weak kingdom of Denmark. Of course, compared to Prussia, it was not very weak, but as it proved to be, yes, they were. So they start to war against Denmark, the first of three enemies, and this very short war against Denmark for Schleswig and Holstein territories was the first time when they started to use so-called needle guns or rifles. These needle guns were being filled with bullets that you can actually put very quickly, so they were not filled from the front side and you just stuck them with a stick, but the bullet was laid very quickly by the hands from the back part. It allowed Prussians to shoot as fast as almost Swedish army of the 30s were. Not just kidding. Now at this moment they broke the record, the Guinness World Record of Swedish army of the 30 Years War in how fast they can shoot, like twice in a minute. These guys you can shoot very quickly, like every 5 seconds perhaps. So, of course, Prussia now proclaimed war on Denmark. That were very surprised that they were under attack, so they were not matched for the Germans, and even Austria became ally of Germany. That was interesting, but you see, this is the realpolitik. They want to be sure, they wanted to be sure that some like France or United Kingdom are not going to intervene, so they persuaded Austria to support them. Austrians didn't know about this because 5 years later they provoked war against us, against Austrian military. The invasion was very swift and very fast. Everybody was really scared and surprised how fast it escalated, because obviously Prussian troops were ready to do that, and it was only provocation with telegrams that Otto von Bismarck was sending to the king, which were not very, how to say, accurate, and they were not very they could be easily misspelled, misunderstood. So this campaign of Prussian armies led mostly to the Czech lands and western Slovakia, where we have also from Bratislava, from Pressburg Zeitung, the news that when you're reading these newspapers, you can have a look at the mountain Kamzik and you can see the pickle helmets of Prussians over there, because they are sending and bombing these lands. Actually, the major battle took place near Hradec Králové, Königgrätz in German, at a locality called Sadová, Bitka pri Sadovej, on the 3rd July 1866, which became one of the biggest battles of the 19th century in our lands, and also, of course, caused terrible casualties. And it was kind of a warning sign for many people not to give up. Now Prussia, of course, very quickly came, as I said, almost to Vienna, to Bratislava. So Franz Josef the first had to surrender and accept the terms of condition, which was that they lose only small parts of Silesia to Germany, but Germans were allowed to take over the large territories of, now have a look, of Saxony, of Hanover, and also other lands in the north, and Austrians could do nothing about this. So also part of Silesia eventually was given to Prussia, that had already been part of it since the 18th century. Now, these red territories of Prussia are really huge and coming to the borders of Belgium, of Luxembourg, and of the Netherlands. Still, the biggest influence of France will be to Bavaria. So we have the last match, and that will be the French. Now Prussians changed the name of their country to North German Confederation, which is used only for 4 short years. Now, what is the impact upon our country? Because Austrians, after 2 defeats, in 1855 and 60, they were defeated by Italians. They had to give up. So they decided to give some advantages to the Slavic nations of the monarchy, to Czechs, Slovaks, Serbians, Croatians, Russians, maybe Poles, which were not enough because they were defeated at the other war. It was obvious that the Austrian army didn't have high morals, because even Slavic people didn't want to fight for them at all. So what happened was that eventually they made peace with Hungarians, Magyar Hungarians, who were allowed to create the government, who were many of them either former supporters of the March Revolution of 1848. Of course, Lajos Kossuth, at that time, he was gone already in the Ottoman Empire, probably dead, I really don't know, sorry for that. But they, for 2 weeks, they were negotiating with this Magyar delegates, and they accepted the new arrangement of the country, which we call the dualism or dualistic monarchy, not only of Austrian Empire but Austro-Hungarian Empire, which created 2 parts of the nations. One is Austria, that is so-called Cisleitania, across the river Leitha, alebo tzv. Predlitavsko, where these Austrian lands with Bohemian Kingdom, Polish territories, maybe Italian and Slovene territories, and Russian and Ukraine territories around Lviv, and also Bukovina. The other part was Transleitania, the land over the river Leitha, Zalitavsko, which was only the Kingdom of Hungary. The only part, the other part, different than Hungary, was this Banate of Croatia. All other lands, including Slovaks, Rusyns, Romanians, but also many of the Croatians and Serbians in Vojvodina, were under influence government, central government in Budapest. Later, of course, Buda at the time, but soon to become a big capital, Budapest, and starting the policy of Magyarization. That was a form of linguistic assimilation in which many people of non-Magyar, non-Hungarian language had to accept at least the identity. Many people in Slovakia changed their names to more Hungarian despite they could not speak the language. Many people at schools only Hungarian Magyar language was allowed even since the trivial education, the lowest education. So that was the reason why Austro-Hungarian Empire will not get rid of very bad moral of their army, since majority of the people were not Germans or Magyar speaking Hungarians. They were Romanians, they were Italians, and mostly Slavic nations. That's why in the First World War, Austro-Hungarian Empire will dissolve at the end, and there is no chance to coming back for them anymore. Franco-Prussian War will be eventually the last part of this lesson, so don't worry, we are coming to the end. And I have already mentioned some parts of it. So this is the map of the unification of Germany. The situation for us is this, like, I don't know, red or orange. Still, these Bavaria, German-speaking lands in the south, the only difference compared to note is that Roman Catholicism is present in here. Still, they would maybe perhaps would be happy to unify with them, apart from King of Bavaria, you know, the inventor of Oktoberfest, the builder of Neuschwanstein, but this Hohenzollern and dynasty didn't have much support from the people around. The religion was not an important part of identity anymore in times of nationalism, liberalism at the same time. So what happened was that the last enemy was France, that still kept like influence in Bavaria and Württemberg and Schwarzwald. So they provoked another war against France with the same tactics, sending telegrams that were easy to be misinterpreted, and actually France proclaimed war upon Germany, who invaded Germany with very swift invasion across Luxembourg and Metz to Luxembourg and very quickly to Sedan. So they didn't actually cross the borders to Alsace-Lorraine. That was natural border because there is the River Rhine, and French could have been already ready to get there. So they used these tactics for the first time. For the second time, Schlieffen Plan, invasion of Belgium in the First World War, another annexation of Belgium, Netherlands and Luxembourg, and swift conquest of northern France with Blitzkrieg in the Second World War. Now only two battles of Sedan, during which Napoleon III was captured. You saw the picture in here, and the Third French Republic was proclaimed together with this big uprising. As I said, the French refused to surrender in Paris, so Paris was besieged. That eventually capitulation was signed up, the Surrender Act in 1871. Before that, German armies, no German army seized South Germany like Bavaria, the rest of the Rhineland, Poríně pre nás, and also the Alsace-Lorraine that today is part of France with Strasbourg. And now the picture that is very important. On 18 January 1871, while Prussians were besieging Paris, and there was still this big insurrection in Paris, the Commune of Paris, they did this thing. Unification of German Empire was declared in the Mirror Hall in Versailles. Imagine the place, the throne hall for Louis XIV, 1516. For Louis XVIII, and now Wilhelm is standing here, Otto von Bismarck, the only one in a white uniform in here. The others, you know, mostly with black uniforms, proclaim, this is the act of humiliation for the French. They shall never forget this until the First World War. And for Germans, they don't have enough, because what will come is that now Germany is unified under the flag not of this liberal democratic Germany with black, red and yellow, of the Rhine Confederation, of these enlightened ideas of revolutions, of equality and renaissance and antiquity. This will be iron and blood, militarism, libertarian economy, but with very powerful tycoons, like supernatural corporation. That's why the flag is flag of Prussia, of Teutonic Order, black and white, and red color in here together. So this is the flag of Prussia later on, and Germans, while defeating France, they had enough time to occupy Cameroon, Namibia, Tanganyika, several islands near Indonesia like Papua New Guinea, and in the Pacific Ocean with Solomon Islands that will be called for a while the Bismarck Island, later taken over by Japanese, and not having chance to take it for them, so Americans take it from them. So even Deutsch, I don't know what is written in here, Landschichten, I'm not sure, I'm not a German speaker, sorry for this. So as you see, so Germans had a couple of colonies, even they claimed some lands in the Antarctica, you know, so one island, Arctic lands too. Okay, even in China or in this Samoa, for example, became some of the lands claimed by them, or being at least asked for them. So now Germans started to prepare for another war immediately. They didn't have enough, and their interest turned overseas. So their aim was to change also the balance of power in the world, not only with destroying the French power, but even British, perhaps American, and even Russians. So now we are going for the next video with Russia, but that's the topic for the next video that you will have in here for the next lesson, and you can watch it because it is already downloading. Maybe one thing that I may introduce to the Slovak students will be the link about Russian territories for the war in Ukraine and the real history of Russia and Ukraine for these days. So what you may expect from the next lesson is this part, and I just checked the time, so 1.5 hours. That will be the end of the class for my student, which are actually 2 full lessons, and I managed to come to this part. You need to study it. Okay, so Firefox introduction, I'm not going to do it. So have a nice day, lads and girls, and you can watch the later videos about Russia and the Balkans too for the upcoming test. The others just enjoy the history. Okay, bye bye.